All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis. Today, just continuing the slow tour of my entire apartment. I think you've probably seen about half of it at this point, just based on my various areas where I have decided to record. Today, I'm deciding to record in my room. Got my bed behind me. I'm sure my dog will make an appearance at some point, though in all likelihood, I'm going to annoy the hell out of her, and she's not going to come on in. So, it is what it is, folks. Unqualified Analysis, we are back. One thing that is a fun fact, just stumbling right into this thing. I'm real tired after work today, if you can't tell. Also got some phlegm just stuck in the old craw, if you will. But in March of 1973, two lefty pitchers for the Yankees, Mike Kekich and Fritz Peterson. Just by those names, some of you baseball fans already know where I'm going with this. They decided to swap wives. That's actual not written, but actual swap going on. Not even a superstition thing either. They basically just started cheating with each other's wives, fell in love, and really just executed a formal trade after a certain point. Pick swap here, send a farm system player there. Really, it was a husband swap, though, because each dude went to live with the other's wife and kids. And, it worked out for Peterson and Kekich's wife, but it flamed out quickly for Kekich and Peterson's wife, and sent Mike Kekich down a baseball career spiral that he never really recovered from. And you could say he hasn't really recovered to this day because he now lives in Mexico, from what I know. So there you go. Mike Kekich and Fritz Peterson, one of the strangest sagas in all of baseball history. There were some second thoughts from Kekich, I believe. He was the one that got sent down the career spiral. He tried to take it back. Peterson and Kekich's former wife were just feeling each other too much, and just all went downhill from there. So there you go. You learned something new today. Just crazy shit happening in the world of baseball historically. But hey, today we have got some headlines. Not a whole lot of them, so there's going to be a little bit of bloviating at the end of this episode. Trying to not make it a 20-minute episode every week, pretty much. And you know what? We're just going to get into the headlines, but first and foremost, I am going to close my room door. I just don't want the people in the hallway hearing about this. I don't want them to listen early, I don't want them to get any sneak previews. Really, I just don't want to. I don't want to bother my neighbors. So let's get into the headlines. I'm gonna go shut this door. I'll be right back. Quick cut in 3, 2, 1, bang. And here we're back. We're back, folks. We're in this thing. So, a couple things that happened this week. Really, there's only like 2 or 3 headlines. I think there's like 3 actual headlines going on right now. But it was a roller coaster of emotions week in sports, man. There's not a whole lot of actual sports going on. We got like 1 game in the NBA Finals. I guess we got 2 now that the game 2 was played on Saturday night. But there's, not a whole lot of news, but enough news. Really, it was just one story from this past week that just had me on an emotional roller coaster. That is, you know what? We're going to bump it up to number 1 because the other one, it's big, but not quite as big. It was in a shocking move. This came out on like Friday evening, Friday. The Lakers were closing in on hiring UConn head coach, star head coach, that is, Danny Hurley. I hated it. Not as a hire for the Lakers, because I thought it would be a good hire, because I think Danny Hurley can kind of, navigate those waters, figure out how to talk to people at the pro level and still, maintain his intense style. It's what great coaches do at the end of the day. I think he's a little atypical for a college head coach, both in style of, philosophy offensively, defensively, all that sort of stuff, and also just the way that he interacts with players. He yells them incessantly on the court, is an absolute crazy person, but they all love the hell out of that dude. So I thought it would be okay. Thought he would adapt all right. I hated it for basketball just because college basketball has got like one real star right now, and it is Danny Hurley. I can't name a single player that's in college basketball right now outside of maybe Armando Bacot. He could come back for a 7th year. That is a real thing. I think he's staying in the NBA draft, but he could come back conceivably for a 7th year because why not go for that doctorate, I suppose, or maybe he's still working on a master's. I don't know, all that sort of stuff going on, but I digress on that front. Didn't have to worry about any of that though because Danny Big Dick Hurley flopped that massive penis out on the table and said, "I ain't leaving, baby." He is staying at UConn. No need to worry about it anymore. He is going for that three-peat that I'm sure has happened in college basketball before, but not probably since like John Wooden years has it happened. This is awesome. This is great. I was in such dread on Sunday watching a little NBA countdown while I'm ironing my clothes and whatnot. Gotta look good at work. Can't be showing up in a wrinkled shirt, kids. You will be made fun of. Maybe not to your face, probably not to your face, but when people are talking while they're warming up their lunches at the communal microwave, they're going to be saying, "Have you seen Caleb's god-awful wrinkled shirt?" And no, they didn't, because I ironed that. I'll tell you what, I ironed that shirt. Also, kind of conveniently wore a shirt that doesn't really matter if it's ironed or not. It always kind of looks a little casual. It's a button down, but it's casual. It's one of those button downs that you can wear to a semi-formal work setting, and you can wear it out to the bars. In fact, I did wear that out to the bar this weekend. Wore it to dinner on Friday, wore it out to the bar on Saturday, and then I wore it to work on Monday. Also wore it to work last week. I love that shirt, man. I love that shirt. But I'm not entirely sure how I even got on that. I'll probably never find the beginning of that thread again. So we're just going to move right past that. Danny Hurley, folks. Danny Hurley is the only real reason I watch March Madness this year. Only real reason why I watched. I used to be really, really into college basketball. Whenever I was a kid, college basketball, really any sort of sports that were on TV that were within the basketball realm or the football realm, I was all about it, man. I was all about it. I mean, I'm watching like mid-major college basketball. This was like maybe not the heyday of college basketball, but when I was a kid, you still had a lot of big-name players that came in and were playing for a while. It wasn't just an onslaught of one-and-dones because big-time programs, Duke, UNC were certainly like this. Kansas for a long time was like this. We're still in the era where you bring guys in with the expectation of them being there 2-3 years. You're not recruiting a lot of one and done guys unless you were definitely not Mike. John Calipari, different generic white name. Unless you were that guy, no one's really bringing in those one and done type of players. That you remember John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, that whole team back in the day with Kentucky didn't win the title. That's a pattern you can go look at historically with John Calipari's career, but I digress. Those teams were exciting to me. Maybe it's because it was new. I started watching sports when I was like in middle school, and I couldn't get enough of it once I did. I was one of those kids that got back from school and just turned on ESPN immediately, caught the entire afternoon block. If I didn't have practice. So usually in the fall, I caught the entire afternoon block. In the summers, I caught the entire afternoon block. But the point is, I'd get home from school, I'd get home from sports and stuff, and I'd immediately turn on ESPN if I wasn't turning on a game of some sort, video games, that is. And so maybe it was that newness that kept me around college football for as long as I did, but it was exciting. It was awesome. You saw all these great players that were stars. People knew their names. Obviously, you remember like a Kemba Walker. He was huge when I was a kid. I mean, you remember, all types and sorts of players. That's my cop-out for not knowing any names after that because, by God, it's been probably 15 years at this point since that was the case. I'm getting old, folks. It's happening right before your very eyes. But really, ever since my childhood, I have not been, really once I got out of high school, I've not been super into sports and whatnot. Not a whole lot on TV, especially like I'm as much into the NFL and college football as I ever have been. It's basically the subject matter of this show generally. But with the other sports, college basketball in particular, my interest waned because, you have to learn new players every single year. It gets exhausting. Didn't help that I went to Mississippi State, and basically the whole time I was there, their team was a joke. Hired Ben Howland, I think, in my sophomore year, I want to say. But, they didn't make the tournament while I was there. They've gotten better now. They've made a couple successive good hires at head coach, going from Ben Howland, who can elevate the program's recruiting profile, and then Chris Jans, who can kind of, bring in some great coaching aspect there. So, they're good now. I'm still not following college basketball as much, though, just because it's exhausting to try and stay on track with all this stuff. The one and done thing really has just made it so you have to really learn a new crop of players every year, pretty much. And it's less so at Mississippi State, but it's still, especially in the transfer portal era, you don't know where the hell anyone is at this point anyway. So I say all that to say there's not really stars in college basketball like there used to be. A lot of the guys that could have become stars came out in their freshman seasons. Donovan Clingan is a bit of an anomaly with the way that he approached his college career at this point. And tying this back in, the real reason that Donovan Clingan stayed for that extra year in college when he would have been a first-round pick last season after their national championship is because the guy who was the head coach, Danny Hurley, he's that dude, man. He's the best coach in all of college basketball. He's the reason why, asses are in seats in a lot of places. Like, he absolutely is a guy that college basketball needs to have around if it wants to maintain any sorts of relevance. I mean, even John Calipari, you don't really talk a whole lot about Kentucky's teams until it comes to March, and they were, disappointing over the last several years now. He's at Arkansas. I'm assuming a lot of people who don't really follow college basketball forgot he was at Arkansas. I forget he's at Arkansas all the time, quite frankly. Bill Self has a lot of good teams, but, not producing a great deal of marketable stars out there anymore. Coach K's retired. Roy Williams is retired. College basketball, if you're not going to have star players, you need guys like Danny Hurley in there to come out there, be great in press, all that sort of stuff, be really, really dynamic as a head coach, be dominant as a head coach. You need guys there that are just entertaining and are really damn good at what they do. And check both boxes for Danny Hurley. I am so glad he did not jump ship to the Lakers, especially when he would have made more money, had an easier lifestyle, and what do I even need to name a number 3, man? I mean, I can't imagine the tax bracket is that much different from where he was or is in UConn to where he would have been going in Los Angeles. I think I'm not a tax attorney, so don't come at me for that. Not an attorney at all, in spite of what the clients may think sometimes. Not an attorney, just a paralegal, my friends. However, kind of lost my train of thought there by going off on a tangent. You start thinking about work, and all of a sudden you hear the explosions, and you're taken back to the jungles of Vietnam. Just people popping out of holes next to you, shooting at your legs. Just stepping on landmines and whatnot. There was another diatribe I just went on right there, but you understand. There's a little shell shock going on when you start thinking about work related stuff. However, Danny Hurley, that is all to say, brought it back. It wouldn't have been that different of a money thing going from UConn to LA. Now, cost of living certainly would have been a little bit different, but at the same time, you're going from a spot where you're a star, where you're going to stay basically as long as you want, and you're going to make good money doing it, living cheaper over than in UConn than it is at LA. Storrs, Connecticut, noticeably probably a little cheaper than LA's prices, I would imagine. But not only that, you'd be going to an NBA job, which on the surface, better lifestyle, You're working with adults. You don't have to like babysit anymore, all that sort of good stuff. But at the same time, NBA coaches are just scapegoats. That's really, if you're like an average replacement level NBA coach, you will be blamed for any postseason misfortune. The blame hammer almost never falls on the star players unless they just don't do it for year after year after year. I mean, look at what the Cleveland Cavaliers just did over this past year. JB Bickerstaff, he's been there for a couple seasons now, done a good job in each season, gets them to, I can't remember if they were bouncing the first round or the second round this year, but gets them into the playoffs, has a good seed, has a good season. They lose in the playoffs. He's the scapegoat. He's the odd man out. He's out of there. I mean, just look at what the Suns did last year. A little bit different with the transition in ownership. Wants to bring in his own guy. Understand that. But the Suns go into the playoffs. They have a disappointing playoff run. I think they lose in the second round to Denver or something along those lines, either first or second round for that matter. And then Monty Williams gets the axe because, okay, it must be his fault. Get him out of here. We don't want him here. There was a little bit more political shit going on with that behind the scenes, but I don't want to belabor the point. Danny Hurley absolutely, I think from a lifestyle perspective, absolutely made a better choice. It's a more stressful job in college for sure, especially in the transfer portal era. But even before that, you got one and dones as well a lot of times, and he's in that echelon where he can get one-on-ones there or one and dones there. I think Stephon Castle was a one and done this year. It came in, lit it up in the tournament. Now he's off to the NBA draft. Probably going to get drafted high in a fairly weak draft class. Really weak draft class this year, just by pure talent evaluation, all that sort of stuff. So you've got the recruiting stuff to contend with, bringing in like a whole new team every year in a lot of cases. You've got the transfer portal stuff to contend with as well. You got to bring in players from there, otherwise you're falling behind competition. Shout out Dabo Swinney. And then all of a sudden, you're working 24 hours a day. It's a 365-day-a-year job, essentially. So from the job perspective, a lot more stressful for sure, but the job security is fantastic. The people of Storrs, Connecticut love him. I mean, he's going to be a dominant coach there for as long as he stays at UConn, and he's at a blue blood. There's no reason for me to think that he's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Like, I love this. I love this decision. I love it for the sake of college basketball. I think Danny Hurley made the right decision just based on a career trajectory standpoint. Heed the cautionary tale of John Beilein. You don't want to, start chasing bags. Then next thing you know, you're out of a job, and I don't even think anyone has hired John Beilein since, mostly because of the stories that came out of the locker room and team meetings in Cleveland where they just ran his ass out of town. I mean, absolutely. One of the biggest busts of a head coaching hire from the college ranks of all time. Usually it doesn't go well, but usually not that spectacularly badly. But yet, again, I don't think Danny Hurley's going to, be kind of demeaning players in team meetings or anything like that, like John Beilein was, but heed the cautionary tale of a guy like John Beilein. It's not, it's not guaranteed that there's going to be this great job on the other side. You might just find yourself staring down the barrel of unemployment and looking at, okay, what are the broadcasting jobs looking like right now? So I think he made the right decision, both selfishly and I think for his sake. I think he made the right decision on this one. And boy, I'm glad. I'm glad he did. I'll probably bet for the three-peat whenever they get to the NCAA tournament next year, assuming they're as dominant as they were this past season. And you know what? Maybe I'll make money. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll lose, like I lost that Denver Nuggets future for the NBA. Turns out, 7-game series, a little bit harder to predict than a one-off game when a team doesn't really have time to prepare for you. Just, hey, you live and you learn, folks. You live and you learn. But congratulations to Danny Hurley on probably getting a raise and staying in UConn. So, got 2 more headlines for you, both in the football arena. I just wanted to, speak my piece on Danny Hurley and whatever the hell direction I went on in that one. That was meandering. Meandering, I say. My brain is just soft, warm pudding right now. It's mush. Absolute mush. Just a paste right now. I am... my brain is flitting in every direction. It was a long day at work. Really, it was a short day at work because I was working my ass off, but it was a long day at work. And you know what? Bit of a mixed bag. a bit of a mixed bag. I don't want to get into it too much, but it was good in some ways. It was horrible in others, and I'll just leave it at that. Two headlines here, and I'll try and get through them pretty quickly. The Niners running back Christian McCaffrey is signing a 2-year extension for $38 million. Once again, resetting the running back market, though it's debatable whether any running back is going to get that amount of money just because Christian McCaffrey is such an otherworldly great player. It just it doesn't seem like a feasible sum for anyone else who is anything short of elite. It's a good benchmark, though, to negotiate a good contract offer for if you are one of the, maybe not on Christian McCaffrey's level, but right in that tier below. Maybe instead of like a Saquon Barkley getting $12 million, maybe next time around that guy gets 14. So at the very least, running back salaries are going in the right direction. So that's good. That's good, I suppose. You just have to be like, one of the most special players in the league to get that sort of money. But $19 million a year, man, not bad at all. And if I had to guess, that's probably going to be through the useful life of his NFL career, because he's getting up on it. I think he's over 30 now, I want to say. Either that or he's a sneaky young guy. If he's not over 30, he's firmly in the category of sneaky young for me right now. But he's getting up there, and he's gotten, with the Panthers, I thought they were going to ride him till the wheels fell off, quite frankly. So he got a bunch of touches with them. He's gotten a bunch of touches with the 49ers. At some point, it's going to catch up to him. He's not Derrick Henry, just, a mammoth of a man, an absolute alien of a human being, just running power through people. He is a little bit shiftier than what Derrick Henry brings to the table, but at the same time, he's gotten so many touches, sustained so many hits, gotten so many injuries throughout his career. I can imagine two-year extension, that's probably around a good time. I'd say after 2 years, there's really no guarantee that you're going to be getting the same Christian McCaffrey. Hell, there's no guarantee you're going to be getting the same Christian McCaffrey this upcoming season because of, like I said, it is no guarantee he's going to be good. He's gotten so many touches, so many hits. It's going to catch up eventually. It catches up to everyone. Father Time is undefeated, as they say. But 2 years, solid little investment there. He's the centerpiece of the offense, and they're just taking advantage of having Brock Purdy on that rookie deal. We'll talk about him here in just a second on our way out here. But hey, congrats to Christian McCaffrey on making some more money. He's not going to have to work a day in his life after he is done with his career if he doesn't want to. All right, so I just deleted the last headline, but I already know it off the top of my head. Idiot. So Darren Waller officially has retired. I think that came out on Sunday, I want to say. He put it on his YouTube channel, passed word on to the Giants, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, he's officially retired. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, probably more new music coming out. Maybe going to release an album in the next year. We'll see. And I wish it wasn't the case. I respect the ability of Darren Waller to be at the depths that he was, going through alcoholism, all that sort of stuff, to pull himself up by the bootstraps, so to speak, kind of get his life straight. I think he went to rehab, all that sort of stuff, stayed sober, made himself into a Pro Bowl level player, a top 5 tight end when he was at the peak of his powers. To see that, and then going through a divorce, retiring right on the heels of that divorce, and just leaning into music, I'm here to tell you this is going to be one of the weirdest post-retirement career arcs that you've seen in recent memory. It's and I wish it wasn't the case. Weird does not generally mean that person is in a good place. Generally, ever. I don't think that's a hallmark of great mental health. At the end of the day, if you are going through a weird post-career, usually means weird stuff's going on. Aaron Rodgers, I'm looking at you. It's going to be a fun one. Just because I don't like the guy particularly all that much. I think he's a smarmy bastard. Darren Waller, I respect the struggle he went through, man. I hope he doesn't fall off the wagon. I really do. This is currently probably the toughest test of his entire life on that front. Even if it's just god awful, terrible music, and I don't want to listen to it one bit, you know, I hope he just leans wholeheartedly into music and stays away from the vices that damn near derailed his life and, got his career derailed as well after he's now retired at this point. I hope for the best for the guy. I am, though, here to tell you all this is going to be an all-time weird post-career, man. It's going to be, it's going to be funny on one hand if you don't think about it too much, but then you think about it too much, it's like, I wonder what's going on in his life. I hope he's okay. And, again, just lean into the music. Just, devote your life over to music. Get a vocal coach, maybe. It could help. Just a thought. Maybe you don't use so much auto-tune on your upcoming projects, maybe, or use more. T-Pain told us one thing. It's you can use a lot of auto-tune and your shit might sound good, but just lean into music. Just lean into music, my friend. It'll be a lot easier that way. We'll just say that, and just don't have time for anything but the music. That's my best advice to you, sir. Good luck. Hope it's not too weird. Got a feeling it's going to be a real weird post-retirement, though. So this will be, a developing story, if you will. We may revisit that here in the coming months and years. So, with that said, I'm going to take a quick swig of this caffeinated beverage here because your boy needs it. I don't want to brag too much because I think there's a good chance that the cut's going to end up sucking, but I think I might have done a good job. I think I might have done a good job on that jump cut earlier. But that's disgusting. I apologize for what I just did right there. And I'm going to have to do it again. So, here goes. Let me see if this works. Fun fact, mute button on my mic does work. So you didn't have to hear all that. You didn't. You had to watch me do a quick sniffle into the back of my throat. It is what it is. Probably a little too descriptive, but you didn't have to hear it. That's the good thing. No one wants to hear someone just clearing out the sinuses real quick. So I want to end this thing off, and yes, we're already ending this thing off here soon because not a whole lot to talk about. We are in the midst of the dead period, folks. It's just dumb OTA headlines and nothing that really matters outside of contract stuff. So yeah, we're here. Let's hope for more extensions next week. Can't extend Justin Jefferson twice, though. Yeah, I'd like him to. I'd like to keep him around for a while. So yeah, just bear with me. I'm going to be doing a lot more free-form topics coming forward, and this is one of them. So I was sitting outside on my break that I took much later than usual during the afternoon because I was just such a busy boy. I was a busy boy today, I'll tell you what. But enjoying my break, standing out on the stoop on the side where you go to vape and whatnot while you're at work. And I'm just thinking to myself, boy, we have a slim show today. I can't just have this thing go 20 minutes. Let's think of some sort of segment to do. So we're in segment season. It's that time of year. Until we get the football back, we are firmly in segment season. And I thought to myself, hey, self, what will the storylines of this upcoming NFL season be? What will be the main through lines of this season? I thought to myself, self, that's a damn good segment idea. That'll fill up at least a good 15 minutes. So I bring it here to you, fine folks of this podcast. What will the storylines of this upcoming season be? First and foremost, the thing that no one can get around, obviously, can the Chiefs three-peat? And obviously the answer to that here in June is yes, they can. Will they? It's a tough road through the playoffs. You got all the quarterbacks in the world in the AFC right now. It's not a guarantee. You got a real good chance, though, when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Even more than that, though, I think they improved their receiving core. I think the guys they got in there are better than they were last year. Obviously, they get Xavier Worthy in the draft. Rashee Rice is, I don't think the legal stuff is going to resolve itself over the course of this season. So for now, he's on the team and will probably play opening week. You get Hollywood Brown in free agency on a 1-year deal. Already, that 1-2-3 is better than it was last year. That's before you even factor in Travis Kelce. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to have himself another MVP season, quite frankly. We'll see how the offensive line does. That's probably going to be the biggest issue for the offense, quite frankly. But we'll see. Interior is still solid. It's just the tackles. Got a little bit of work to do. Not quite all the way there. I think they still got Juwan Taylor in town. I want to say he's still around. Replacing the opposite tackle, though. So that's always a bit of a strange proposition, if you will, a tough one. But Patrick Mahomes makes that easier, too. Makes your numbers look a little bit better. Gets the confidence up. All that sort of good stuff. But you look at the defense, maybe not quite as strong as last year. They had to get younger at certain spots. They had to let some guys go in free agency. But you got the bell cow. You got Stone Cold, Chris Jones, Hail State, baby, on your defensive line. That just makes everyone's job easier. You still got good linebackers. I mean, you lose L'Jarius Sneed, obviously, who's your star on the outside, but you still have a good crop of young secondary players at both levels. And you got Steve Spagnuolo, who's just been a wizard at calling defenses and getting players in good position, and has kind of avoided some previous trends where he'd have terrible starts to the season and really be dialed in towards the end of the season. That's not been the case over the last couple of years. He's just been, real solid every season over the last couple of years, and I think he's past that point where he's probably going to end up getting a head coaching job. So got him locked in, especially with an offensive head coach. That's a hell of a luxury to have, man. That's a good sort of state of stability to have. And because of that, I still probably have the Chiefs being the favorites to come out of the AFC. I think they got, great continuity at a lot of levels. Obviously, great playoff experience. The improved weapons is the biggest thing for me. Maybe the defense is a little bit weaker than it was last year. Maybe we'll have some young players step up and it'll be just as good. But at the end of the day, having better receivers for Patrick Mahomes to throw to, it's going to win you more games in the regular season. I think it's going to make things easier for you in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to just go full God mode every time. He will, but he doesn't have to every time because he's got better receivers that I think will get open on a more consistent basis at the end of the day. I think he got a lot more verticality in this receiving core than he did last year, really just by the presence of Xavier Worthy, that speed. You watched him at all in college at Texas. And again, this was my philosophy on Derek Stingley, which he's not quite the level that we thought he would be when he got drafted 3rd overall by the Texans, but still a really solid player. I look at Xavier Worthy showing up to Texas day one at a place that's known for putting out receivers and being the best damn player on that offense from jump, from the absolute beginning. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. I was starting to sound like I was getting hoarse there. I'm not a horse, I'm a human, okay? Let's not get any weird ideas here. But you look at Xavier Worthy on the outside, I don't think this is a John Ross situation. I think Xavier Worthy, he's not just a deep threat. He's a really good route runner. I think he can really make a difference in this offense. I don't want to put the Tyreek Hill mantle on him. Tyreek Hill's a Hall of Fame receiver. If Xavier Worthy turns out to be half the player that Tyreek Hill is, maybe it's a disappointment, but at the end of the day, he still has a good career. That's just how damn good Tyreek Hill is as a football player, strictly as a football player. But at the end of the day, I feel like Xavier Worthy's going to step in, especially with that quarterback. I think he's going to break off some real good deep plays this year. Patrick Mahomes is going to put the ball right on the money for him. I think he's going to be, I don't know if he'll end up being the number 1 receiver. I still think Hollywood Brown is going to be the number 1 receiver in this offense. But I think there's a real chance that he usurps Rashee Rice as the number 2 by the end of the year. I just think the ceiling for this group is so much higher than it was last year. And when you got Patrick Mahomes and a Hall of Fame defensive lineman on the other side, in Chris Jones anchoring it with a great defensive coordinator who's probably a Hall of Famer in his own right, if they put coordinators in the Hall of Fame like that. Don't know if they do, quite frankly. Dick LeBeau is probably going in the Hall of Fame. Different level, but you get it. You get it. One of those things. Great coaches, great players from top to bottom. I have a hard time seeing that team lose in the postseason, man. I just feel like the road is paved for a three-peat, and the building of the GOAT dynasty will continue you know, until the end of his career. Again, if you're not on my train yet, just give it time. You'll be over here eventually. You won't have a damn choice by the time it's all said and done. I can almost guarantee you of that. So yeah, that is to say, I really do think they can three-peat, and we're going to be following that all throughout the course of this season. Second storyline, can the Niners get the job done in the final year of Brock Purdy's affordable window? Presumably, we can talk about that in just a second. We'll table the affordability discussion for just a moment. So this is going to be an interesting one to follow because the Niners have mostly kept their core together on both sides of the ball. You still got Fred Warner. You still got Nick Bosa. Yeah, you still got Brock Purdy, all the offensive weapons, the accoutrement on the outside, the running back, obviously. Christian McCaffrey, we just talked about him getting $19 million a year because he's the best damn running back in the entire league. With all that together, they have the best roster pound for pound in the entire NFL once again. Can they do it? Can they do it? They basically just have, I mean, if you want to just assume that the Niners give him an extension after this year, for now, we'll get to that discussion here in a second. If you just assume that the Niners give him an extension after this year, he's going to get paid $45-50 million. I'd be shocked if he didn't get paid $50 million, honestly, based on what he's done in the 2 years as a starter so far. And I assume he's going to do again in this upcoming year, barring injury. Always got to knock on wood when I say those sorts of things. Really, it's this year. You have to win this year. And they've gotten close. Probably would have been to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row if, Brock Purdy's UCL didn't get just siphoned by Hassan Reddick. They've got to do it. Like, they've had the best roster in the NFL for a good couple years now. The last 2 seasons going into this season, they've had the best, roster in the entire league and one of the best coaches in the entire league for every single one of those years. Problem is, each time you go to the Super Bowl, you keep running into that man, Patrick Mahomes, and he's just getting better and better and better. So it's basically like this year or it's not going to happen, essentially, for the Niners. And I think that the pressure is going to be at the most heightened level you can imagine within that facility, outside of that facility, in the media, though they're gonna focus on the darlings a little bit more, but you can't just ignore a team like the 49ers, and they're going to be feeling that. They're going to be feeling that throughout the season, and I want to see how they react to that pressure. I think Brock Purdy's going to be unflappable. Kyle Shanahan, jury's still out. The clutch time decisions are questionable, to say the least. But that's going to be the second biggest storyline in my mind. Can the 49ers finally pull it together and do it before they have to pay Brock Purdy all that money and the window ostensibly closes? Now that contract, is it just going to be a this year thing, or do the 49ers decide that they're going to take a risk, maybe, piss off Brock Purdy in the short run, but what happens if you don't sign Brock Purdy to an extension after this next season and he goes into the final year of his contract? What happens then when, maybe you don't pay him? At the end of the day, you think about it, you get through that last contract year. Obviously, you're kind of just kicking the can down the road, and the farther you kick the can down the road, the higher the price tag is going to be at the end of the day. But you buy yourself one more year if you don't win this season. And then, after the next season, not this upcoming one, I'm talking about 2025 going into 2026. After that next season, you franchise tag him, and he can't really go anywhere anyways. That's, break glass in case of emergency sort of scenario, but we've seen teams do it in the past. We saw the Cowboys do it with Dak Prescott. We saw Kirk Cousins become one of the biggest and best bagmen of all time in the NFL by just riding out franchise tags. We can see that happening over here with the 49ers. I'm not saying it will happen. I think the 49ers have shown that they're proactive. In a lot of cases, Nick Bosa played a lot of hardball, which, took a long time for them to get that deal done, but he still was not in danger of reaching free agency. It was going into his final year of his rookie deal at the end of the day. It's important to note no fifth-year option for Brock Purdy, though. You can't just kick that can down the road one more time. It's basically this year, next year, and then you have to franchise tag him, which is, probably 35, probably closer to 40 million by the time you get to that point. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very, very interesting to see how they approach this. If we're fast forwarding a year and we're coming off a season where the 49ers did not win a Super Bowl. If they do win a Super Bowl, I think everyone gets paid. I think you just kind of, reward the people that need to be rewarded. Mission accomplished to a certain extent. We don't need to alienate our quarterback possibly just to, maybe go one more year at this thing unless he, gives his express written consent that, yeah, that's what I want to do, which would not recommend that, Mr. Purdy. Would not recommend that one bit. However, it's interesting to think about. I think it's worth putting out there because it is a possibility that the 49ers do decide to go that route, in which case they'd have one more year of cheap Brock Purdy. But I would just go into it assuming that this is going to be the final cheap year of Brock Purdy's career to this point, and probably going forward until he is old and can no longer throw a football anymore. So, got to capitalize this year. What are they going to do? I'll be watching that all year for sure. Number 3, and this is a big one as well. Can the Texans, with all those big offseason moves, going all in free agency, getting right players in the draft, accruing all sorts of capital in the process too. I mean, they took the Vikings to the cleaners, man. I'll tell you what, man. You look at the final tally for those two trades. It is staggering compensation. Dallas Turner is going to be really damn good. I'll tell you that much to live up to that draft compensation we gave up for him. I digress on that front. But with all of those additions made by the 49ers this year, all of the hype coming in, they're the favorites in that division by far. They're right up there with the Chiefs as far as, Super Bowl favorites coming out of the AFC. Can the Texans make a deep playoff run this year? Can they make a Super Bowl this year even? You expect C.J. Stroud to be better. In his rookie year, he had the greatest rookie year of all time. Now he's coming into his second year. Somehow Bobby Slowick stays behind, doesn't get a head coaching gig for whatever reason. He's still there. So you got one more year with Bobby Slowick there at the very least. Continuity in an offense, which you don't usually see with a defensive head coach with an elite quarterback. Usually those guys get hired over and over and over again. Hell, even guys like Matt Ryan, who were never, top 5 quarterback. Like, he had that one MVP year, but he was always in that, low 10, high teens sort of range. Even guys like that, he had such a run on offensive coordinators getting hired for head coaches. It was like 4 or 5 years in a row at one point. Where he just going from one guy to the next guy just because, coordinators look better. You'd think with C.J. Stroud being a better quarterback than Matt Ryan, I'm not uncomfortable saying that, would, have that sort of same trend. And I'm not saying he won't. It's a long career he's got ahead of him. So I'm sure that that trend is going to come to bear at some point, I would imagine. But keeping that offensive coordinator around, keeping Bobby Slowick around for another year, you can't undervalue just how huge that is for C.J. Stroud and his development, having continuity in that offense for another year. And I picked C.J. Stroud to win MVP. Just this couple episodes ago in the Recklessly Early predictions. I feel very highly about this team. I feel very highly about C.J. Stroud. I think this team surrounded Nick Caserio. Hats off to him. Again, I said this before. I thought he was just dead in the water with that tanking job he was doing, but turn it around in pretty much the ideal fashion. You get lucky in some places, you get strategic in others, and they got the right combination of it, and bang, they're right in it right now. So all the shout out to Nick Caserio. He got not Noah Brown. I'm thinking of the wide receiver that just got paid here not too long ago. Yeah, that one's just going to flit away from my memory. It is what it is. Nico Collins, that's the one. Found it, folks. Tank Dell, you drafted him in the mid rounds last year, and he was a revelation for you. Big time deep threat. If he can stay healthy in this next season, he's going to be a big contributor. And then you trade for Stephon Diggs. Basically just make it so it's like, okay, 1 year trial run. Maybe we resign you after this. Maybe we just let you hit free agency, but we got this year, so let's just live in the now sort of thing. You got a crazy good 1-2-3 at wide receiver. Offensive line is average. They're not bad. They're just average. Defense, added all sorts of players all over the field, lost a few as well, but added a bunch all throughout the field. Can they put that all together? Can D'Amico Ryans, that great young head coach, and I really love D'Amico Ryans as a head coach, glad it's worked out for him with the Houston Texans. It's not often that the hometown hero comes home and it looks good. Usually it's the exact opposite, especially at the college level. You can see the storied history of that sort of stuff happening all over college football, essentially. We'll see how it works for Kentucky basketball this time around, but I digress. Can they pull it all together this year? Can the Texans do it? Can they, bring themselves from, a playoff win? They get into the, divisional round versus the Ravens, and then they're outclassed. Can they translate that with the improvements to the team into a deep playoff run and maybe a Super Bowl run at the end of the day? I'm going to be watching that all throughout the course of the year. I think, again, they can. There's a lot of teams that can, especially in the AFC. A lot of teams can make a deep playoff run. It's just a matter of who will. And I think that, the Texans have positioned themselves as good as anybody to be that second best team in the AFC right now. And I think they're well on their way to doing just that. We'll see if it gets into a Super Bowl, but it all kind of falls on the shoulders of how well CJ Stroud, progresses in his second year. Where does he improve? Does he make that next jump to an MVP caliber season? I'm looking forward to watching that. I think it's going to be a fascinating storyline this year. And really, outside of those three I just mentioned, there's so many subplots going on. I mean, the rookie quarterbacks. My God, how does the political situation work out with the Atlanta Falcons with Michael Penix coming in? How does J.J. McCarthy look with the Minnesota Vikings? Does Bo Nix get thrown to the Wolves there with the Denver Broncos, or does Sean Payton kind of redeem himself as the quarterback whisperer over there? How does Drake May do with the New England Patriots? Not a great situation for him to go into, but he's a really ultra-talented guy. What happens there? What happens with Jaden Daniels? That's just the rookie quarterbacks, man. There's other stuff going on. Anthony Richardson. There's so many storylines. The Buffalo Bills get rid of everybody. How do they come back after all that salary cap shedding? Do they look remarkably similar to what they did in previous years, or do they have a fall off? Miami, all this, again, salary cap stuff going on. There is storylines all over the league. If I did a whole episode on storylines, it'd be a 2-hour long, just the Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme with Charlie Day, whose character I can't remember, and don't flog me for it. I apologize. My brain is mush right now. It's the thing with the sticky notes and the red string connecting the sticky notes and all that sort of stuff. That's what that episode would be. There's so many storylines in the NFL. It's what makes it so great. It's why I love it. It's why I'm sure all of you love it, because there's just no shortage of intrigue when that season kicks off. So many questions, and I barely even scratched the surface with that little rundown I just did right there. I basically just stuck with the quarterbacks for the most part. There's so much other stuff going on. There's so many layers to this whole thing. That's why we love it, and that's why I'm going to continue to do this show until I guess I just don't feel like it anymore. Going to be a while for that, though. And on that note, thank you all so much for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. Even with that 25-minute diatribe here at the end, didn't push it to an hour. That's, I deserve a little pat on my head for that. That's good work right there. That's just good, wholesome, clean fun. So thank you all so much for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. If you enjoyed, go ahead and hit subscribe wherever you listen to it, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever it is. Hit subscribe, share with a friend, help me grow this thing a little bit more if you enjoy it. If you want to follow me on my socials, it's at CalebVUA. Link will be down in the description. If you want to hit me up, hit up the show. Either slide into those DMs on Twitter or hit up the email unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. That too will be down in the description. With that, thank you all so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. And you know what? As always, I got no clue what I'm talking about. One thing I learned this week, though, the Great Wall of China is actually 17 walls. It's not one contiguous wall. It is one, long monolith essentially, but different sections built during different dynasties. They're all connected to each other, though. That's why they are, the Great Wall, one long wall. The length of the wall is equivalent to going from New York to London and back twice. That's a damn fact. And that blew my mind whenever I learned that. It's still mind-boggling to me. You're taking 4 trips across the Atlantic, and that is the length of the Great Wall of China when you stretch it out. So now that I've blown your mind, I will see y'all on the morrow. And by on the morrow, I mean next Tuesday. Deuces.